Back to the nervous tissue we learned before. If you look at this picture, can you recognize those cells here? So again, those star-shaped cells are neurons. This is one big neuron, and in this picture you can see three different neurons. And also those small dots you see around those neurons and all those dots, those are the neuroglial cell. In fact, those are the nuclei of the neuroglial cell inside this neuron tissue. So the nervous tissue here, you see there's many cells together on this small slice, and in fact the nervous tissue are highly cellular, and although you see so much space there, but in fact those are taken by the neuroglial cell. Here, what the dot is only the nucleus. The cell body take the whole space off. So there's not too much extracellular space. It's tightly packed together. So do not get confused when you see this picture here. The space are taken by the neuroglial cell. Inside those cell tissue, remember when we learn the nervous tissue, the function of the nervous tissue is to communicate, to control the body and also sense those different input from the environment. And there's two different cells. One is the neurons, which is a star-shaped cells that have a lot of branches. The one have branches have those the one that which are able to be excited. Those are the excitable cells. So the electrical signals are transmitted by the neurons, or we call it nerve cells. That's neurons. And the second type of the cells, in fact, all those small dots inside this picture, beside the neurons, all those dots, each dense dot is one single neuroglia. One dot is in one nucleus of one neuroglial cell. So those are the small cells around those neurons, and they do not transmit electrical signals. They are not excitable, but they are very important because they support all those nervous tissue function. It support for nutrition, for protection, for the give all those need for the neurons. That is neuroglia, called neuroglia cell or neuroglial cell. In our lab, we talk about those neurons and also neuroglia make up those nervous tissue. We said that everything that not a neuron will be a neuroglia. And here today we want to talk about the neuroglia more, and there's more than one neuroglia as shown in this picture here. They are in different shape, and you can tell which type of a neuroglia it is by the function, by the shape, and also the location. We have 4 different neuroglia in the CNS and 2 different neuroglia in the PNS. The astrocyte is in the CNS, in the central nervous system, either in the brain and also the spinal cord. That is the most abundant cells, and it's a star shape like in this picture here. And you can see in this picture, the yellowish cell is a neuron, and this star shape cell is an astrocyte. The astrocyte connect to the blood vessel and also the neuron together. So it gives the neuron a structure, supports the structure, fix it at the location there. And at the same time, it also receives nutrients from the blood, send the nutrients and send it to the neuron. So that is astrocyte. And astrocyte is a support and brace neuron. It also plays roles in exchange between the capillaries and neurons for the nutrients and the waste. And in fact, for some young neurons, it also guides those migration. It just leads those neurons and tell them where the target is and make sure the axon go to the right direction. At the same time, because it controls the environment of the neuron, so it controls the chemical balance, ion concentration around the neurons. And for the nerve impulse and the neurotransmitters, sometimes it can change those astrocytes as well. So the astrocyte is most abundant, and it do influence the nervous system and also the neuronal function. But remember, the one that conduct a signal is neuron, not any other glial cells. So this one is very important. Supportive cell, we cannot live without it, but that is not the neuron. That's not the one excitable to send information. And the second one in the CNS is a microglia cell. Microglia, so it's this cell here. It have these branches, but it's much smaller than the astrocyte. It's more like a white blood cell, but remember, those are the glial cell. If those are the glial cell, they belong to the nervous system, and those are not blood cell or anything. They are modified white blood cells, but they are considered one of the nervous system. This cell will be important for the immune response. Can transfer to phagocytes, microorganism, and the neuroderivatives, so it will eat those damaged tissue and unwanted parts. Okay, so that is a microglial cell. The third glial cell in the CNS is ependymal. Ependymal cells, just look at the word. Well, for me, I think the ependymal looks very similar to the epidermis. Epidermis cells are the top layer of the skin. It wrap up things and protect. Same for the ependymal. Ependymal cells are this layer here, and you can see it just arranged tightly to each other to separate our nervous tissue, which is a brain or spinal cord at this location, and also the other side will be outside of it, normally like a ventricle or a chamber. So that is the layer separate things. That's an ependymal cell. So those cells are normally squamous, clumers, so you can think it's a modified epithelial cells. But here, those are not epithelial tissue, those are the nervous tissue, because the cell is a glial cell and that is nervous tissue. Do not get it confused with like a simple cuboidal. Okay, it's not simple cuboidal epithelial. Here is the glial cell of the nervous tissue. Those cells may be ciliated, so you see the cilia around this location here, and those are the cilia. Okay, the cilia, just as the epithelial tissues, the cilia will just beating and move those fluid around it. So normally here, those are the CSF, the cranial spinal fluid, which base the whole brain and also the whole spinal cord. So those are lined up separate from the brain and spinal cord with the ependymal cells. So those cells line the cavity just like the skin line things, but here is a nervous tissue. The last glial cell in the CNS is a oligodendrocyte. Remember, it's a CNS here. So those oligodendrocytes form a myelin for the axon in the CNS. So here what you see is one cell. That's only one cell because you see one nucleus. And those one cells have three different branches. One to this one, the other to that one, and the last one is covered and blocked by the cell body here. So you see there's a cell branch go out and wrap up those axon, the yellow thing here you see. The yellow thing is the axon of the neuron, and it's wrapped up by those oligodendrocytes. It's like the axon are the wired system of your body, and they are isolated by those different reps to separate them, to prevent those electrical signals to transmit or release to the environment. Those myelins are protective fibers. It will just protect those axon by structure and also protect this transmission. And remember, oligodendrocyte is only in the CNS. So the myelin in the CNS is made by the oligodendrocyte. And in fact, in the PNS, we have another cell which you may heard before, the Schwann cell. Schwann cells are the cell make the myelin sheath in the PNS. So what do you see here is 1, 2, 3, and more Schwann cell. Those one segment of a myelin is one Schwann cell. They just roll up all those axons like a jelly roll and protect everything, isolate them. And there's one more glial cell in the PNS. What you can see is the satellite cell. Satellite cells are the one that wrap up the cell body. It doesn't wrap up the axon, doesn't wrap up the cord, but it wrap up the cell body. That's the satellite cell, which is only the outside part. Okay, the yellow inside is a neuron. That's a neuron cell body. So the satellite cells surround and protect the cell body. Schwann cell protect the myelin, and both of them are in the PNS, in the peripheral nervous system. So put everything back together, and we can see all 6 types of new neuroglial cells in this one picture here. And this part is a CNS, and the rest part consider that's a PNS. So you can see those different cells type here. Astrocytes are the one that bind the neuron with a blood vessel. So you can see those are large ones here. Those are astrocytes. And the microglial cells are smaller, but it's small, also like a star shape. So those are the microglial cells. Ependymal cells are the one that form kind of a epithelial sheath, but it's not epithelial, but it's very similar to that. So you can find them here. That's ependymal. And the oligodendrocyte and also Schwann cell, this one and this one, they make the myelin sheath. So you need to look for the axon and look for those small segments here. This is oligodendrocyte. Well, only part of the oligodendrocyte. The whole oligodendrocyte is this structure here. And that's one oligodendrocyte and have a different branch. One branch form one myelin sheath, and the other branch form the other. But for the Schwann cell, what you can see is here is one cell form one myelin sheath. And the satellite cell is not shown in this picture, but if you have a cell body in the PNS, then you will see the satellite cell. So